साहिब का घर शिखर पर जहां सिलहली गैल, पाँव न टीके पपील का तहाँ खन खन ला दे बैल. Also, Swamiji also says, लख 84 भोग के पौ पर अटका आए, अब की पासा ना पड़े फिर 84 जाए. For me, they are revealing, they are telling about how eligible we are to walk on a spiritual path. Let's deep dive into the topic today. We have a great speaker joining us from Singapore, Mr. Saurabh Sinha, almost associated with the Hingam Yoga for more than 3 decades. The entire family is blessed by Swamiji, very close to the Swamiji, a senior core team member of Hingam Yoga Singapore. I am always learning from you. Over to you, Saurabhji, for today's talk.
Jai Sadgurudev, everyone. Thank you, Omji, for introducing the topic to the group. Today, we are going to talk about eligibility. Eligibility in the context of Brahm Vidya. So, if you could move to the next slide. Right. Thank you. So, on this slide, you see 4 lids, boxes with lids. We'll go slowly. It's a very busy slide. And today, as opposed to the previous session, there's a lot more stuff which has been put on the slides. So please bear with me when I go through each one of them slowly, one by one. So today we are talking about spirituality. We are talking about eligibility in the context of spirituality. Eligibility for what? Eligibility for getting the knowledge of Brahm Vidya. Now, before we go into this topic of eligibility, let's talk about Brahm Vidya. What is Brahm Vidya and why are we talking about Brahm Vidya at all? So Brahm Vidya is known as Santamat, Adhyatma, Brahma Gyan, Paravidya, Brahma Ved, Madhumati, as you can see on the leftmost bar in dark blue. So all these refer to Brahm Vidya itself. Now, what is Brahm Vidya? Brahm Vidya, as we discussed in the last session, is the knowledge of conscious entities. It is the knowledge of the 6 eternal entities. It is the knowledge of Prakriti, the soul, the Akshar Brahma, the Atma, Paramatma, Kal, to various entities which exist. And everything that exists comes under the purview of one of these 6 eternal entities. So Brahm Vidya is the knowledge of these conscious entities. What do we mean by knowledge? It is not merely getting to know about it by listening to talks like these or reading books and getting to know about them. Brahm Vidya is an experiential body of knowledge. So there are 2 aspects of Brahm Vidya. There is the theoretical knowledge which you can acquire by reading, by listening to people, by attending satsangs, by doing your own research. But then there is this practical side of it, for which you need to do certain things. That is why Brahm Vidya is unique. But then the question is, there are many other things. As you can see in the second column, the last point, there are 64 arts, sciences, and masteries that exist in the universe, according to scriptures. So if there are 64 that exist, why do we need this separate body of knowledge, which is Brahm Vidya? So the importance of Brahm Vidya is that it is the soul of all these 64 arts and sciences. It stands on top of every other body of knowledge. Why? That leads us to a discussion of who we are. As we discussed in previous session, we are ultimately souls who are trapped in the bondage of Prakriti. We are conducting deeds and we are bound by the consequences of those deeds. So we are trapped in this eternal, almost eternal cycle of conduct of deeds and then bearing the consequences of those deeds. That is the problem. So to get liberated from the claws of Prakriti, we need Brahm Vidya. Brahm Vidya is the only gateway through which the soul acquires the necessary escape velocity to exit Prakriti and get into the conscious realm where it can then continue its conscious journey towards reaching its ultimate destination, that is God. So a practical knowledge of Brahmvidya is essential. It is a science. And as I said earlier, it is an experiential science. It is not only bookish knowledge which gives you the required experience. You got to back it up with practical meditation in your own lab of the body, from where you do certain things to get liberated. So who brings this knowledge? From where does this knowledge originate? All bodies of knowledge ultimately originate from God. I mean, God is the ultimate source of Brahmvidya as well. That is why Brahmvidya has been called Brahmaja, which means it has come out of, emanated from Brahm, actually the Parbrahm, which is God. The eternal Sadguru entity, whom we discussed last time, is the preacher. He's the first preacher of Brahmvidya. It is that entity which brings that knowledge of Brahmvidya into Prakriti. There is no other source of Brahmvidya in Prakriti other than the eternal Sadguru entity. And the eternal Sadguru entity designates Sadgurus who are visible to us humans, who then impart the knowledge of Brahmvidya to us humans. So the eternal Sadguru does two things. The eternal Sadguru, or in fact, he does more than two things. He brings the knowledge of Brahmvidya to the world at the beginning of creation. Then he ensures that Brahmvidya is the knowledge, or the body of knowledge is always there before everyone. And he designates a Sadguru who's the visible face of the knowledge of Brahmvidya before the world. Who is Brahmvidya meant for? Are there any restrictions? No. Brahmvidya is meant for all of humanity. It is meant for men and women of all races, religions, sects, geographies. So it's meant for everybody. Everybody has a right to do certain things, to get out of the bounds of Prakriti and reach the ultimate destination, which is God. However, eligibility is required. We will see why what does eligibility actually do. It is a technical thing. It is not a broad statement being made, or you need to be eligible, you need to be very good and all that. We'll come to why eligibility is required. It's a technical definition. Eligibility is required for not only possessing Brahmvidya, but also retaining Brahmvidya. Otherwise, this body of knowledge will not stay in us. First of all, it would not enter us if we are not eligible. And even if it enters because we have certain good deeds done in previous births, it may not stay. So to make it enter us and to make it stay within us, we need to become eligible. And that is why we are discussing eligibility here. You can go to the next slide now. So before we go into the positive aspects of eligibility, I thought let us first discuss what characteristics are not eligible, or what actually takes us away from eligibility to acquire the knowledge of Brahm Vidya. So whatever you see in this slide takes you towards 0% eligibility. What are these? Ego. Now, ego has two connotations. In one sense, ego is a characteristic of the soul. One of the four essential inner organs of the soul is ego, which gives the soul its sense of existence, separate from that of other conscious entities. But the egoistic framework that is being used in this slide is meant for egoism in the context of the material world. So you know who's an egoistic person. Egoistic person cares only about himself or herself. What are the characteristics? Gets easily angered, is craving for fame and recognition. What is in it for me in anything that I do? When such a person goes into a satsang, he will simply be hearing, but he is not listening actively. So that is one of the aspects of egoism. He's an overconfident person. He seems to know everything, doesn't want to, or doesn't need to be told anything, not ready to learn anything. So such a person by default becomes not eligible, because if Brahmvidya wants to come to him, he is not ready to take it because he thinks he already knows everything. Then we go to the next one. Swamiji has written in the Swarved. No, we go to the previous slide. We go to the next point. Sorry, we go to the previous. We go to the next point. Point number B. Swamiji has written in the Swarved that meat eaters, drunkards, consumers of narcotics and other addictive substances. So the term used for these substances is abhaksha and apeya, things which should not be consumed. Why? Because they change the prakritic framework. If you go into the basics of our constitution based on the 5 attributes of nature and the 3 gunas of sattva, raj, and tam, meat eating and consumption of narcotic substances and addictive substances takes us away from the sattva prakriti and moves us into more of raja and tamas, which takes us away from absorption of Brahmvidya. Point number C. An ineligible person is by nature restless. He has lack of control over his senses. He's impulsive by nature, fickle-minded, very independent, does not conform to set rules and regulations, always wants to break away and do things on his own. He's confrontational. It's okay to be confrontational in a positive sense, but this person is argumentative. He doesn't simply want to understand or accept He doesn't have faith. He simply wants to challenge everything without being patient, without doing it and seeing it for himself and then believing. He just wants to negate everything that is being told to him. So, such a person, of course, how can such a person get into Brahmvidya? Then we go to point number D. Brahmvidya stays away from attached and depraved persons. People who have unbridled desire for sensory gratification, lustful people, womanizers, and people who do not follow celibate behavior. There are 8 breaks of celibacy which have been talked about in scriptures. We can discuss it later in the Q&A session if there are questions on it. Then point number E. An ineligible person does not understand the importance of seva or service. He would not be able to sit in a satsang. Like, for example, if you consider this as a satsang, this person would be itching to get a chance to move out of a satsang. It's boring for this person. This person simply does not seem to be interested. Some of the ineligible people they lack education and wisdom as well, for the reason they are not unable to understand what is being told in a satsang. Lethargic people who are like very dull, they don't simply want to do this. The Hindi word for it is king kartavya vimood. That kind of a situation where person simply is lack of interest in doing anything, good or bad, whatever. So such a person becomes ineligible. And finally, crooked kind of people, greedy, effeminate, guileful, deceptive, dishonest, hypocritical, untrustworthy. These type of people are also not eligible. So in a nutshell, all that you see in this slide gets 0% points for eligibility. Now let's go to the next slide. Now you compare and contrast with what are the characteristics of eligible seekers. These are the people in whom Brahmvidya will enter and stay. So see the box on the extreme left on the top in dark blue. The 6 virtues. People who have these 6 virtues are called Shiro Vratdhari. What are these? And these are the 6 attributes of Shadang Yoga. These people have Sham, Dam, Titiksha, Uparti, Shraddha, and Samadhanata. What are these? They have a tranquil mind. They have control over their senses. They have endurance and patience. Their desires are satiated. They renounce the lures of Prakriti for sensory gratification. They have faith in the knowledge of Brahmvidya and in the Sadguru in whom they take refuge. They listen to what Sadguru says with extreme focus, attention, and mental balance, and try to absorb or imbibe most of what is being told to them. These are the 6 virtues. These are the main virtues of eligibility. All other boxes that you see ultimately lead to these 6 attributes. So for example, in light blue, you see that these people are ready to rise to higher levels of knowledge. What do you mean by that? Through gain of eligibility, their intellect or their buddhi becomes more vikasit, more developed over a period of time. through meditation, they are able to subjugate their mind. They are able to do self-introspection in order to continually check where are they over these two slides. In terms of eligibility, are they improving eligibility day by day? In terms of being ineligible, which we saw on the previous slide, are they getting away from that slide, and are they moving into this slide in terms of their life on a day-to-day basis? This person has self-confidence. This person is polite, has no ego. He has intellect and wisdom, but he has no pride of knowledge. He does not have any pride. He does not take any pride in terms of how much he knows. He is not there exhibiting his knowledge or intellect before everyone to gain fame and recognition. Instead, he is humble. He is obeisant to the Sadguru. He has completely surrendered himself through body, mind, soul into the feet of the Sadguru. That is why you see in the gray, he has a cleansed body and soul. His heart is pure. It is one without deceit. He is not a crooked person. Instead, his soul is seeped in love of the Lord. It is from within, he is quite tender. So Brahmvidya can enter into that tender soul, into that soul which is simple, sahaj. These people have mumukshuta. They have the desire of being liberated. They are mumukshus, they are real seekers. And that is why they get attached to the Sadguru with mind, thought, speech, and deeds. These people, when you see the points written in yellow, they serve saints. They attend satsangs regularly. They understand the importance of seva and satsang. Of course, as said earlier, they don't have any aspiration and desire for sensory gratification. They have satiation and renunciation. So they are vairagis, the uparati virtue that you saw in the 6 virtues. They are supremely detached from the stimuli of their senses, which you can see in the sham and the dam in the 6 virtues. And they are able to exercise restraint over the use of these sense organs and organs of deed as well. We can go to the next slide. So in the context of in the context of Vihangam Yoga, how is eligibility acquired? How do we move from the slide that you saw earlier on who is ineligible, to the slide you just now saw, the slide of eligibility? As the slide of ineligibility gets 0 points, the previous slide that you saw gets a full 100 points. All of us, or most of us, are somewhere there in this continuum between 0 and 100. And this is a journey. This is a journey of eligibility that we are trying to undertake using Vihangam Yoga as a via path or as a medium. And Vihangam Yoga gives us the mantra of 4 S's. We talk about seva, we talk about satsang, we talk about swadhyay, and then we talk about sadhana. These are the 4 virtues which are not independent. They are linked to each other, and they have a feedback loop mechanism. So they amplify each other, and there is a positive feedback. For those who are engineers would understand the concept of amplifiers. So each of these quadrants acts as an amplifier for the other quadrants. And we don't need to start in any one quadrant. We need to work on all the four quadrants simultaneously, side by side, with one reinforcing the other. So when you focus on all the four quadrants, you will see later on when we go to the next slide what happens. So what? No, we remain on this slide for now. We remain on this slide. Yeah. So what does Seva give us? Seva gives us humility. When you are performing service, it brings humility into you. It brings selflessness. There's an element of tyag or sacrifice, an element of surrender. You're giving up stuff for performing service. And that brings tenderness into the soul, into what surrounds the soul in terms of the prakritic elements, that is the mind and the intellect. They become more conducive to receive Brahm Vidya and to keep Brahm Vidya within us. Good company is nothing but satsang. We regularly attend the company of the truthful and the learned to learn and to listen and learn from them. What does this lead to? Improved intellect and a purer mind. The mind moves to higher levels. It moves to virtuous levels. The mind is a double-edged sword. If the mind is virtuous, it helps us to perform good deeds. It takes us into the right path. And when this same mind becomes lower down in terms of its attributes, it propels us, or it predisposes us towards things which are not useful for us. So attending satsangs would give us eligibility. Self-reading, which is called swadhyay, of scriptures, especially the Swarved. Why should we read? It helps improve our theoretical understanding of Brahm Vidya. And we can corroborate what practical experience we are gaining through our meditation with what has been written in Swarved. So we can verify, corroborate, ratify, and see for ourselves where we are in the pecking order in terms of experience. It also is a tool for self-introspection. It also purifies mind and widens our intellect. And finally, the most important thing, if we keep on, if we keep on doing surveys, good company, self-reading, but we don't actually do the most important part, which is meditation, then we lose out. Because meditation is the practical part. It is the part where we actually take the consciousness of our soul upwards. And we actually make that journey towards our ultimate destination. So everything that we are doing is for progress in meditation. So if we don't sit in meditation for even 10 minutes, the only thing that has been requested by the Sadguru in his proclamation, Adbhut Marg Yog Vihangam मैं तुझको बतलाऊंगा यदि विधिवत तुम साधन करी हो अमर लोक पहुंचाऊंगा. These are his opening lines. If you meditate as prescribed, I will take you to the Lord. Now, if you don't meditate, if you keep on doing service and satsang and swadhyay, they are good. But ultimately, they are supposed to give you the fillip in meditation. In those 10 minutes, when you sit and you have the three quadrants which are performing for you, then in those 10 minutes, you will achieve what you cannot achieve otherwise. The blessing of the Sadguru would come to you in meditation in those 10 minutes if the other three quadrants are working for you. And if all these four are working properly, and if you compare yourself week on week, month on month, year on year on the previous two slides on ineligibility and eligibility, you will see for yourself how you are moving away naturally from the vices